You're listening to Shoe In, covering the ins and outs of all things footwear, from sneakers to heels, loafers to slippers, and every type of shoe in between. Brought to you by the FDRA, the Footwear Industries Association focused on retail, trade, politics, and fashion, helping create and enhance conversations on all things footwear. And now your footwear insiders, Matt Priest and Andy Polk.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Shoe In Show. We are the Footwear Industries podcast, covering everything about the footwear industry, peeling back the onion layers, getting into the business decisions, the optimizations taking place. I feel more optimistic than I have felt in many months, Matt. I don't know if you feel the same, but part of it is fall, I think, kicking in. Part of it is just I feel like people are getting their footing again. There is stress, of course, and there are concerns, but it feels like we kind of know what we're doing a little bit more than we did 3 or 4 months ago. Yeah,
I totally agree, Andy. Fall is nice. The weather's turning. You said covering the ins and outs of all things footwear, or intro did, and I think of like a nice fall blanket covering me up and the chill, and just there's like a vibrancy in the air that hasn't been there in some time. I don't want to be overly optimistic for those who are facing a lot of different challenges, but to your point, I think we are entering into a phase where our companies, the disaster that is the pandemic, has forced our companies to explore many of the digital tools and opportunities we've been, shouting about from the mountaintops for a number of years now. And I think today's conversation is going to be, again, a reiteration of the urgency of the need to move in this direction for a lot of our companies.
Yeah, and I think we see a lot. We know a lot of companies that were already involved in digital transformation, and that in essence is using software and digital tools to try to optimize design, development, manufacturing, getting line of sight, using data. All these different things are what we talk about with digitization. It's moving from the physical and as much as possible as we can to a digital format and a digital world that speeds up things, that gives more visualization, things like that. So we saw a lot of companies doing that ahead of time, maybe not a lot, but some key companies. We've seen other people jump in, and then some other people are still struggling to figure out what they're going to use, how they're going to do it, a little bit afraid. So it behooves you to really start talking to people and jump in the stream. And one of those companies that we always encourage people to take a look at, to talk to, is Foundry. It's a UK-based firm that does amazing visualization. So Matt, I know you're a huge Star Wars fan. A lot of the visualizations in Star Wars is based off software from Foundry. So I think that's a great way to tee up who our guest is today. It's Jenna Villa. She is one of the leads for Foundry in the US. Jenna, welcome to the show.
Hi, guys.
Hey, Jenna.
Happy to be here.
Cool.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. Really interested in getting, first of all, tell us a little bit about Foundry, because I think people in footwear, who use it know how great it is as a visual tool or for colorways, and we can get into that. But you guys also do some amazing, really cool stuff with studios and et cetera. So maybe just tell us the story of Foundry and what you guys are doing.
Yeah, and I want to set expectations here, guys. We're not going to be helping you guys create any shoes with lasers beaming out like Star Wars. I'm so sorry to disappoint. They're not going to be flying into outer space. Hey, let's talk about it now. Maybe they'll create it here in the future. But I mean, it's what Foundry does, or what Foundry is just so amazing. The backgrounds and the potential for commercial aspects. Foundry really got its start in visual effects and compositing tools for the movie industry. So, if you think about all of that power and all of the things that those tools can do, and you put them in a different aspect, like the footwear industry, you can only just begin to break the surface, or just get really excited about all of the potentials and possibilities there are for these designers to use their imagination. I specifically represent the Moto tool, which is our 3D modeling and rendering program that also does animation as well. So, I mean, I think, as we move forward with some of these companies who I think aren't really are just getting started in a 3D journey. It's exciting to see, how the designers kind of look at it and are starting to think about A, how to get this process done, B, how to automate it, and then 3, how to really just apply their creative chops to these footwear models. It's just been a wild ride and exciting to be here.
And I think it's so cool that we're at the point now where we're talking about, forever we've talked about 3D tools and software, about how it optimizes, our design and development process, speeds things up, gives more accurate representation to factories so they make the product more accurately with more quality. But we're at the point now, and you just mentioned it, but we're at the point where we're now able to start using these renderings as our collateral for retail. I mean, we're able to post those things up and show, kind of get feedback from consumers ahead of time, or post that up in a really interesting digital environment that people can play around with or see something a little bit differently than just kind of this. I don't know. I look at websites today and I just wonder why we're still putting up shoes on these monotone websites, these white backgrounds. Why can't you move a shoe and play around with it in a environment? Why, so it's really interesting that Foundry has all these tools available that brands can start to creatively think about the retail side as well, about how consumers are engaging with their product online, since we're all at our homes right now, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And I think it's interesting for you to say, everybody's looking at their screens, right? So e-commerce is just booming to the forefront, and companies are really pivoting fast on what they can provide or how they're going to, sell this to their consumers. It's all online now. So, having, like you said, these photorealistic 3D assets are just crucial to be able to get your messaging across. And what we're seeing companies go from what was typically an 18-month, design calendar and shrink that down to just, crazy reduced speeds, like 6 to 8 weeks to get something out to market. And I think that's interesting to think about as well, because you're also thinking about being able to respond to consumer demand. Just last fall, we would have thought, okay, everybody's going to be wanting sleek boots to wear out walking around in the city. But this fall, they really need something more comfortable to wear indoors and work from their home office. So, being able to be highly responsive like that is that's
important. The agility that I think that our companies are so in search of, Jenna. It's this agility, and it's not just in the design development space. We see this on the shipment of goods. We see it on all different aspects of how the industry is trying to kind of reorganize itself in this environment. And when you talk about shrinking those lead times in the digital space, what are like 2 or 3 things that come to mind that have been really where Foundry has really empowered companies to start to reduce those times so that they can start to think about that agility aspect in their supply chains and on the development side?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, right, I'm sure people saw this when Adobe or 2D workflows came to the forefront versus hand-drawn design is change, right? The companies have to be willing and wanting to change, as well as your resources. Your resources have to be willing and wanting to either level up their skills or, the company has to bring in resources that can, set these assets up. In addition to that, we try our best, especially with our tool Colorway, which is really easy to use, especially if you've had background in 2D design, is, we're really trying to set it up to where 3D is accessible across the entire team. And it's not just held out here in 3D land where you have your, very, very highly skilled 3D people who are creating the assets, and then they kind of go over to the marketing team. And now we're trying to bring it in and bring the product development teams into the mix and say, hey, you can use these assets as well. That way there's complete transparency and open communication across all these departments. I think it's been fascinating to watch, and I hope more companies, start to adopt or move forward with adopting this, because it's no longer a nice to have. It's a need to have.
The colorways, I think, is the most, and I've talked to Shane at Foundry, who helps a lot of the footwear companies implement and focus on how they optimize using Modo and other tools. But he said in particular, the colorway was really interesting because it's something you could set up really quickly. Because I think a lot of the rub on these tools, Jenna, is people look at them and say, oh my gosh, that means we got to retrain everybody. It's going to be a 2-year process. Who's going to want to do this? So there's still some kind of rub to it. But, I think what's great about what you guys is you find really quick, fast, great wins for companies to implement really quickly and optimize where there's some real pain points. And a lot of that is around like colorway issues, right?
Exactly. I mean, and colorway is so easy to use, guys. If you've had any 2D experience, easily pick this program up in a day, maybe two. Our training for colorway is 2.5 days, and that includes a half day just for playing around. So, it's so easy to pick up. Even the more, I'd say, quote unquote, complicated or more technical features of the tool are still easy to learn. So we also provide, training and training services or asset creation services for folks who may just be getting started on their 3D journey to really kind of help cushion that that's upskilling and sort of the pain they may experience whenever they're leveling up their team.
Yeah, but I'm a big believer in pain as gain sometimes, and I think companies have to have a little bit of a pain to get through this and get to the promised land. I mean, it's not, not everything's going to be easy and rosy. And I'll be honest with you, I think a little bit of pain now on some of these digital tools obviously will help in the long run because people are just slogging it right now with physical samples. I don't know why people are still, mailing around samples to take a look at and getting feedback from team members or holding up on Zoom. It behooves everyone. And I know, again, digital transformation takes time and all these implementations, but there's some people who are just stuck in neutral. And I think to Jenna's point here, here's a quick and easy tool you can implement in 2 days that will greatly speed up your processes, greatly speed up your collaborations remotely, et cetera. And I think that's what we need to be looking at as an industry is how do we plug in tools really quickly to solve some of those problems as at the same time, it's like a dual track where we look holistically at how we change our whole kind of workflow around these 3D tools. So it's not, everybody's looking for the holy grail, and that it'd be great if there was such a thing. If there was a holy grail, we wouldn't be in this COVID mess, to be honest with you, as a world. But I think, the holy grail for 3D is exactly that. It's this quest that we're all going after, but we need to pick up wins along the way as we figure out our strategy. And I think it's great that you guys are really in tune with helping people understand how to best train and how to play around with the tools. And I know you guys do a lot of demos as well to help people kind of see and then share best practices across what you guys are working with the footwear companies, right?
Exactly. I mean, we do a ton of custom demos. We're always happy to hop in and help, and even get folks up to speed. I mean, like you said, with the moto trainings, I think it's really interesting to see folks who have little to no 3D background come into these moto trainings just thinking, wow, this is going to be this is going to be a lot to digest, and you just see their faces light up through the process, and they just. People who have been in footwear design, even if they've just been doing 2D for so long, can kind of pick it up pretty quickly. I mean, they're really ingrained in the process. They understand how it works, and I think those capabilities are there. But like you said, Andy, you've got to kind of get over that hump, and you've got to be willing to kind of take a little bit of pain to be able to get those end results.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of attitude, and I think it's a lot of leadership. I think people who are doing really well have really good leaders who believe in this and understand and have the vision. And it's the people who trust their leaders and have the right attitude to say, okay, if Bob is telling me to do this and he's my boss, then I'm going to trust that he knows what he's talking about. And I think in the long run, the people with the digital tools and skills and abilities are going to be the ones that are going to be highly sought after in our industry going forward. And that's a big message to a lot of people out there who may be struggling, who may be unemployed or furloughed, that, now's a great time to start skilling up and find that future fit with footwear, the brands who will be looking for these folks.
Mm-hmm. And that's a really good observation, Andy. Sorry, Matt, if I cut you off.
No problem whatsoever, Jenna. I wanted to kind of pivot away from this discussion and move more back to what we're talking about and kind of the environment in which people are engaging in the consumer level. And I think like we all think of the e-commerce experience as kind of that first engagement. But there's this whole blind spot that I have that I've been in tune with and talking to Nike and others about the gaming industry and moving into the digitization of footwear and things like Fortnite and EA Sports, different applications, which actually has been doing it for years in their NBA games. And I just think as gaming is a multi-billion dollar operation, I think about what Foundry's, pardon the pun, but foundation has been in kind of digitizing visual experiences. It's like this crossroads of what you guys do really well. And that is further engagement with your product in an environment people don't expect to encounter it. We all expect to go to Zappos.com and look at shoes and buy shoes. But when you're in Fortnite, someone's wearing Air Jordans that just dropped or are about to drop, and it is a limited release, and that pushes that community into to Nike.com to purchase that product. These are going to be all new and exciting ways in which there's going to be this cross-pollination. So I think, again, going back to the need of the digitization and skilling up, as Andy said, I think is really important, because it's not, brick and mortar is super important, but we're going to be cross-pollinating our products. It's going to be product placement everywhere. And I think that's kind of a new landscape for which we're exploring. And it's, right now it's just a select few number of brands, but I think it could be a whole slew of brands that decide who want to get into that space.
Exactly. And I think I would even take it just a couple of steps further, Matt, and say that AR is right here on the horizon. And I mean, if you're talking about building 3D assets to kind of, be represented or have your brand represented across all spaces, whether it be gaming or whether consumers in the store, whether they're online, having these digital assets available that look photorealistic and these people can interact with is super important.
I love this conversation. I always love talking about the future and where it's going. And I know some people think I'm like a dreamer about stuff, but it really is happening in different areas. Just as Matt said, I mean, I don't know if anybody follows me on LinkedIn. God bless you if you do, but I've been talking about this like gamification of, product for forever, for several years now. Because I think exactly like Matt, when you're looking at all these different areas, you're talking about digital touch points. So traditionally, we would think when we're all growing up, 70s, 80s, whatever, my generation, you got to go down. You know what kind of brand you want. You go down, you got to touch, feel it, look at it, whatever. Today's youth, there may be 100 digital touch points before they ever hop on a website to purchase a pair of shoes. Mm-hmm. And I only learned that because we did a retail webinar and Volumental CEO Moritz pointed that out. And I just thought that was so interesting to think about before they even go into a brick and mortar store, whether it's e-commerce or whatever. There's all these digital touch points that a consumer will have where they see something, an ad, or they'll, before they ever start searching it out. And so when we're talking about digital tools, I don't know how you survive or even thrive in this environment if you're not developing things for digital and they're not visual and engaging and fun and cool. And I think too, using tools like Modo and other tools are going to be hugely important as we move into this customization. And I know, so when we talk about customization, some people do the traditional kind of wholesale model and they're like, well, it doesn't fit for me. And of course it doesn't fit for you, but there's this whole generation of new brands. They're going to be coming up and their whole model is going to be around, here's a shoe model on a website. Here's all the colorway options. Here's all the material options. Here's all these things. And you're going to be able to start building that. And in order to have that ability to do that, you're going to have programs like Modo and have those colorway programs and have all these things in house where you have your data stored together in these systems, right? Jenna, is that what you guys are thinking about as things are moving forward?
Exactly. I mean, exactly. That's what we're really trying to provide here is we're trying to help folks create one asset, one source of truth right? Where they can share this across any platform or share this across any team, and really be able to understand and get a really strong understanding of the visual aid of the tool, to be able to see that footwear asset and know that it's going to look the same as it in the design review, as it does in front of the consumer online, as it does in front of the consumer. And let's say we have a special edition in in a video game, being able to have that sort of that clarity and share that with everybody is really important, because as you guys may know, the sampling process can end up being quite extensive and painstaking, especially if there's a ton of different teams working from a ton of different, maybe hand-drawn or 2D models that don't really communicate the end user's design intent.
Well, that's when you can just fax it over, right? You can just hand sketch it. You can use your fax machine in your house to your colleague across the city, and their fax machine will ring and they can look at it. They can add sketches and fax it right back. And there's no problem with doing that, right? I mean, that's, it's the way of the world. Please.
I prefer dial-up, Andy. Dial-up is my way to go.
No, guys, I live in 2020. I'm not sure about that.
Man, if you're listening to Shoe In on dial-up, God bless you. I hope it comes through clean, and I hope it don't sound like Max Headroom on your, or your family hops on the phone and cuts you off the connection.
Time to hang up, Andrew.
Someone's calling in from their fax machine.
Exactly. Jenna, thank you so much for hopping on the show with us today to talk about these kind of digital ideas and tools that you guys are providing. And I do encourage folks to reach out to Jenna or Shane or anyone at Foundry and I do believe in this day and age, you got to jump in the stream and just start doing demos and start talking and figuring out what other people are doing and implementing it. Even if it's step by step, as I think making forward motion gives you a better picture. Every step forward through the fog will help open it up, and you'll see more holistically how to move forward digitally. But there's some small things that you can do right now that will make a big impact with Foundry and some other folks. So Jenna, thanks very much for sharing and what you guys are doing.
Thanks so much for having me, guys. It was fun.
Awesome, folks. Matt, we're heading towards the holiday season. There's a lot going on. I do want to let people know that we have a lot of webinars and a lot of events happening to try to optimize. Please go to fdra.org to learn more about those events that are coming up. Matt will be leading a retail roundtable very soon to kind of give an outlook at the holiday season, which we're very excited about. But again, fdra.org, you can go on there and find all our upcoming events, professional development tools and resources, etc. We do appreciate you listening. We're entering now, I think, our 4th year of this podcast, which is amazing. We appreciate everybody out there who supports the podcast or tells their friends about the podcast. If you have ideas on shows that you want to hear or speakers you think would be great to have on, let us know. The show is your show. It's really about helping you do your job a lot better, a lot more efficiently. It's really about helping our industry become a lot stronger. So drop us a line at shoeinshow.com. Let us know. Again, thank you very much for listening. And until next time, Shoe In is out.
Shoe In has been brought to you by the FDRA, the Footwear Industries Association focused on retail, trade, politics, and fashion, helping create and enhance conversations on all things footwear. For information about FDRA, visit fdra.org.